Today we're going to take off the rear bumper cover and treat any of the metal underneath for rust. To begin with, we're going to open the hatch and take out the spare tire liner to access some bolts that are under the sill. I've taken the cargo spare tire cover, and there's a little string coiled here, and then that hangs up off of the ledge here for the hatch. On the back sill here, there's a series of two push pins, one here and one here. They pull out, and then you take this sill and move it forward, and then there's a tab basically on the driver's side here. You'll have to push forward, and then eventually it'll disengage. Looking from the spare tire towards the rear, there's a series of 4 studs with nuts on them, and you have to use a 10mm deep well, and then you can reach in on top of the studs and take the nuts off. On the back corner there's a Phillips screw that needs removed, and underneath it is a keeper, and the keeper comes away, and then that exposes the hole here, and you got one on each side. Underneath the car you can see the metal beam we're trying to get to in order to clean and paint. There's a series of 4 push pins here underneath, 2 on the back and 2 on the side in the fender wells. If you have mud flaps, you'll have a 10mm bolt and probably 11mm nut. At this point you'll also want to jack up the car and take the tires off so you can access the other hardware and then make it easier to access once you get it lifted up in order to get the push pins and paint and everything else. With the wheel removed, and if you do have mud flaps, you can remove the 2 Phillips screws here, or if you don't, they're probably going to be push pins that need removed. There's a screw right where the bumper cover ends in here, right behind this trim piece here. I had difficulty trying to pull these out, so rather than take the chance of breaking them, I've pulled this panel pin out and bent the plastic enough to get a 10mm ratchet in there. It's kind of hard to see, but you can maybe see where the ratchet tip is. Anywhere there's a screw head in there, it's 10mm, and that has to come out, and then the bumper cover will come away. One of the last things you have to do is disconnect the backup light wires on both the driver and passenger side. They have this connector here. There's a tab you push in and down, and then connector comes apart. With all the hardware off of the fender wells underneath, and then the 4 bolts sticking into the back there, the bumper will pretty much just slide straight off the back of the vehicle. Because of the length of those bolts that the nuts were removed from, it'll pull straight, probably ratchet it a little bit back and forth, and then it should come off. Well, the bumper is off the car. I put some cardboard down before I took the bumper off so I don't scratch the paint on the bumper. You can see the foam here. There's a metal bar in there. You can see the dirt and everything. The one difficulty I ran into, there's this clip on the side here, and you kind of have to lift the edge of the bumper up a little bit to disengage it from these like little tabs. Once you lift it up a little bit, then it pulls away no problem. Now we'll explore a little bit of the rust back here. So this car has about 200,000 miles on it, and this rail back here is rusted underneath on the back. Where it mounts to the vehicle, all the bolts are rusted inside. You can see all the surface rust here. While I have this off, it makes it real easy to pop the gasket here for the hatch out. And along the edges here where there's spot welds, you'll start to see some rust, as well as on the top and the bottom. So this gasket will come off, and anywhere that looks like there's surface rust starting, I'll paint it. That way it'll keep it from spreading into the painted areas that you can see. So where the hatch glass is, you can see how filthy it is. It collects grime all the time. So you want to possibly take this gasket loose and also check for rust along the edges. So underneath the car you can see where the bumper mounts are. I'm going to go ahead and take the mounts themselves off, clean, and then treat this. Down here where the bumper cover came down to this wheel well liner, you can see how this is starting to rust here. That'll get treated. Various bolt holes, mounting points. This car fortunately had rubberized undercoating put on it, but if your car didn't, there's going to be all sorts of mounting places where the hardware is starting to rust. I'm going to address that. It's hard to see, but up underneath there you can start to see a little bit of rust where the plastic wheel well stops. Also where the bumper cover came down and this trim piece here comes down, You can start to see that I already lifted it up, and it's rusted probably a good 2-3 inches up along the edge here where this cover comes down. So I'll try to lift that up and treat what I can. Another thing we're going to check is here where the fuel door is. There's this plastic cover that covers the fuel line of the tank as well as the vent. We're going to pop that off and make sure that all the steel work behind there is still protected. Okay, I've taken the 3 screws out. I'm going to go ahead and let this cover kind of fall down out of place. And it sounds kind of like that. And even with regular cleaning, you can see the pile of dirt that was collected on this trim piece. So it's a good idea just to take the 3 10mm bolts off, drop this piece and clean it. That'll help preserve your fuel line and prevent any rust. So here you can see the fuel net coming in. This discoloration is probably from overfill or a little splashed gasoline, but that discoloration means the paint's been affected, so we'll want to treat that. The line itself seems to be in reasonably good shape. There's just a little bit of surface rust starting. This bracket here is starting to rust really bad, and again more discoloration here. So we'll try to treat and paint these areas here to keep this fuel line and the return assembly all intact. On the back bumper, this styrofoam piece that was in there, towards the metal frame, there's this metal bar that's inserted into the styrofoam. And in places where the styrofoam held the water, you can see how totally pitted this bar is. While I have the bumper off, on all the leading edges here where it's spot welded together, I saw some rust spots. So I went ahead and painted the underside, the outside, and then down here where the fender well is, there's like a triangle spot where there's a pocket. So I got that all painted. The bumper, I couldn't paint inside. The only way to do that would have had it completely removed and taken to a shop and professionally done. But I painted everything I could, as well as the mounting points to the vehicle. Painted behind this wheel well liner here, especially where all the spot welds and everything are. Started to see some rust. Also painted the hardware that holds the bumper on here to the frame member. Also a nice time paint the mounting hardware for the heat shield or the exhaust system here, especially around these rubber dampeners. They like to rust a lot around there. So I got the fuel door, opened that up and cleaned in. There was a lot of dirt collected around the fill neck, so cleaned that all out. Here the rear bumper had actually been rubbing against the metal. It had created a rust spot, so I pulled the plastic cladding back, painted underneath all that, keep that from rubbing. There was a spot weld here, as well as down here on the bottom that had started to rust, so that's all coated now. On the inside, just a few times it might have been overfilled. It had actually discolored, and you could start to see the paint was starting to come apart. Plus, I had that plastic pan that screws here that holds all this dirt. So I painted everything all the way down here, so when that plastic pan's in there, if it holds any dirt against it, it'll be less likely to rust. Painted it all the way down into the fuel tank there. And again, made sure to paint these brackets and stuff. Since they're thinner metal, they tend to rust out first. I have the bumper and underside painted. Everything's ready to go back together. Right now is the easiest. You'll have access to the backup lights, whether it be change a bulb or fix an assembly. Pigtail comes in, unscrews, pulls out. I did end up painting these bolts on both sides. They were rusted pretty bad. For whatever reason, the backup lights actually point up into the air instead of down towards the ground. I guess that makes it easier the way they designed it to access with the bumper attached from underneath the vehicle. Once you get the styrofoam block back into place, the bumper just slides right in. The long screws there just slide right into the holes. The trick is on the sides here, where again you have to pull the wheel liner down to access this bolt to put it back in, as well as snap these tabs back into the plastic retainer here.